RLUSD is expanding globally. There's some big moves happening in Japan right now and the rest of the world. We're going to get into what those things are and what could that mean for XRP holders. Then Ripple, of course, the company. Tons of new information, guys. Lots of stuff going on here. We're also going to look at some connections between Ondo, XRP, BlackRock, Goldman Sachs, Citi, JP Morgan, Franklin Templeton. It's all confirmed. We're going to get into this information. We're also going to take a look at recent inflows on the XRP ledger and what kind of market cap multiplier we just saw in the recent pump here last few weeks. Let's go ahead and get into this. Ripple in Japan's SBI Holdings through its subsidiary SBI VC Trade announces a partnership to distribute RLUSD stablecoin in Japan Q1 2026. This is right around the corner. Let's listen to this. So Japan is having some kind of issues here. So this person saying Japan is a ticking time bomb in global finance, 260% debt to GDP, highest in the world, 10 trillion Japan bond market prop up by endless Bank of Japan printing, population shrinking by 500,000 each year, dependent on imports for 94% of its energy. And now SBI drops RLUSD into the mix. And remember, Japan is going to be pushing forward with a digital yen. And so you start to wonder, is that going to be or associated with the XRP ledger at all? Remember, SBI, Yoshitaka Kitao, the chairman of SBI, has a very strong grip in Japan. People listen to him, they look up to him, and he is one of the leaders in the banking sector in Japan. Let's go ahead and jump into this. Chad Steingraber says RLUSD globalization, the new world reserve currency powered by XRP. Monica Long tweeted this out. RLUSD and Japan. Thank you very much. And this was the tweet that they were talking about here. The 300 billion stablecoin market is set to go into the trillions together with SBI VC official. We're bringing RLUSD to Japan. So I wanted to see what could this mean for, Japan and Ripple and XRP holders. And so RLUSD will launch in Japan under new robust stablecoin frameworks, giving Ripple's regulatory clarity and institutional credibility. Japan is one of the world's most progressive markets in stablecoin policy, signaling its confidence in Ripple's compliance standard. Institutional adoption, RLUSD is fully backed by US dollar deposits, government bonds, and all of that good stuff. You know this already. It does talk about the 300 billion. I don't need to reread that to you. Other countries and banks could follow suit here. This is what I really wanted to know. Japan, of course, is one of the biggest financial markets that people trade in, but you also have the UK and Europe and other places around the world. When are they going to start making some moves on the XRP ledger? You start to wonder when this is going to be. It does talk about the global ripple effect, regulatory clarity in Japan, and the growing demand for compliant stablecoins set a precedent that could influence other countries' approaches to digital adoption. Japan's legal recognition of stablecoins as currency assets may encourage similar moves in progressive markets such as Singapore, the UAE, and parts of Europe. Remember, in Singapore, they've been moving forward. Straits X moved forward with the Singaporean dollar on the XRP ledger. Banking sector momentum. The U.S. Office of Comptroller of Currency recently approved community banks to use stablecoins, including RLUSD. These are community banks, smaller banks from the larger institutions that we all know kind of run the rails, right? The SWIFT system. Those are the ones that all of these other mid-sized to lower tier banks and credit unions go to use the rails to move money globally. Now those banks don't have to bow down to the big people, the big banks, big people. What was I thinking there? The big banks, right? Chase, Citi, Goldman Sachs, these types of banks, they can do this all themselves going through Ripple or Circle or Hedera, right? Let's talk about competitive advantage over Tether and USDC. This is what I really like to hear. RLUSD's transparent reserve custody and compliance-driven model differentiate it from incumbent stablecoins like Tether. Remember, Tether's become so popular because it's used in kind of some shady parts of the crypto space, right? RLUSD is specifically designed for institutions and banks to use. So if you are an institution and a bank, are you going to pick the stablecoin that just got a D rating by Blue Chip, right? The stablecoin that you don't know if they have the reserves or backups because they can't complete an audit. If Tether, is so confident, right? All of their critics say, show us the money, right? Show us the audit from a big four company. You know how much an audit like that costs? $5 to $10 million. So you'd think Tether has the money. They just made $10 billion last year, something extraordinary. They said that they're going to spend billions of dollars in Bitcoin mining and other things, but they can't spend $5 to $10 million on an audit. That is suspicious to me. You let me know what you think down below, but this is also something that's going to give Ripple a leg up. And man, I'm really looking forward. Brad Garlinghouse is bullish about this. He posted about this. On a positive note, we made some major announcements this week talking about the 30 billion in payments Ripple net, both fiat and crypto, and we're partnering with MFS Africa to bring ODL to Africa, our sixth continent. And so I said, why is this important? Global expansion by partnering with MFS Africa to bring on-demand liquidity to Africa and Ripple, entering the sixth continent, showcasing strong momentum and international growth in market penetration. It talks about 30 billion in payments from RippleNet. That's a positive sign of growth. And it says Africa's emerging payments market. Africa is experiencing rapid financial digitization and a large unbanked population. Integrating Ripple's Net's technologies positions Ripple to capture significant transaction flows. Remember, some people in Africa, they might want to save in US dollars, right? Not everybody wants US dollars, but getting the access to US dollars was always the crux. It was always the most difficult thing because you had to go to one of these currency swap places and they charged you an arm and a leg just to do that. Now with the evolution of stablecoins, people all around the world, if they want to save in US dollars, they can. If they want to save in British pounds, they can. If they want to save in euros or whatever the currency they feel most confident is good for their savings, they can go out and do that now at a fraction of the cost. That is lowering the playing field, right? Leveling the playing field, lowering the playing field. What are we doing today? It's Friday. All right, let's keep it going here. We got the gist of it. So let's get into this. Remember, so Smoke Dog tweeted this out. Ondo plus XRP Ledger equals BlackRock, Goldman Sachs, Citi, JP Morgan, Franklin Templeton. So this was from the Ondo ad. And so it's just showing Goldman Sachs, Citi, JP Morgan, and then you have RLUSD right here. And so they're just pointing out some of the obvious things, right? Here's the Bildle, here's Benji, and then here's RLUSD connecting it all. You start to really wonder, are these larger institutions, they want to work with a stablecoin company in America right now? It's going to be one of the two. It's either going to be Circle or it's going to be Ripple, right? Obviously, PayPal and some of these other ones have it. When we're talking about institutional bank demand, they know what's up. And so I wanted to plug this in to really understand the complexities here because I know some people might be hearing this information for the first time. So let's go through and catch you up on what all this means and so you can master this, right? Like the sensei does. I don't know what we're doing today. Ondo Finances specializes in tokenizing real world assets. I don't know if I've ever said anything about me in third party. I'm sorry. That was kind of strange. All right. Ondo Finance specializes in tokenizing real world assets and its core products focused on tokenized US Treasuries, OUSG, which originated as wrappers from BlackRock's iShares ETF and now allocate heavily to BlackRock's tokenized Bildle fund. Ondo's ecosystem directly lists BlackRock, Morgan Stanley, Ancora Trust, ClearState, and NAV Consulting among close partners, with key team members coming from top firms like Goldman Sachs and Bridgewater. Here is the XRPL integration. In June 2025, Ripple integrated Ondo's Finance tokenized US Treasuries directly onto the XRP ledger, allowing institutional users to mint and redeem OUSG via Ripple's RLUSD stablecoin. This launch positions XRPL as the foundation for institutional-grade tokenized assets, trading and settlement, targeting the projected $19 trillion tokenized assets market by 2033. Bonds globally, $140 trillion market. In the United States here, just the treasury bonds that we're talking about here specifically, it's a $29.6 trillion market. So you got to understand, they're moving these markets onto blockchain. That means that $29 trillion, that liquidity is coming our way. If we can figure out ways to lock up our LUSD or XRP in that regard, that could be beneficial. Right now, they're usually using RLUSD to do this. And so, like, let's say you want to spend $1 million for a treasury bonds, you basically get $1 million worth of RLUSD, you lock that up, and then you get your 4% or whatever the percentage that they're offering you, right? If they can find a way to lock up XRP to do that, that could be beneficial because we're trying to lower the circulating supply. But right now, RLUSD is the choice currency. Just wanted to share my thoughts on that one. It does talk about Wall Street giants here are confirming players. Major institutions, BlackRock, Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, JP Morgan, Franklin Templeton are actively investing, building, and participating in blockchain tokenization, custody, and payment infrastructure. So all of the biggest major institutions in the world are participating here, right? We know where this is heading. We can see it with our own eyes. We've talked about this. We have 1,300 videos on this channel talking about the evolution of digital finance and these new rails. We're just, everything now is confirming what we've already known for a long time, but it's great to see that we've been on the right track. That's the most important thing here. BlackRock's Bildle fund is being tokenized and distributed through platforms like Ondo, with Ripple and XRPL now serving as on-chain venue for these tokenized treasuries. JP Morgan has directly transacted tokenized treasuries on-chain with Ondo and Chainlink, demonstrating real public blockchain settlement for traditional financial assets. And it talks about Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and Citi rank among the most active global banks in blockchain tokenization investments. So the biggest banks in the world are the most active. That makes the most sense here. And it says why this matters. The Ondo plus XRPL links enable permission, highly liquid assets to tokenized treasury yields, providing Wall Street firms with exposure to regulated on-chain assets with instant settlement without legacy market limitations. So cool, man. So cool. All right. In a matter of hours, so Chad Steingraber was posting some information from just a few weeks ago. This was some inflows that we saw XRP move from $2.80 to $3.10. So I wanted to kind of like look at this data to understand what was the market cap multiplier. So I know some people are still learning about this, but here is the gist of what this means. When you're talking about something like XRP and some of these other crypto assets, they're not as liquid as people believe they are. So that means for every dollar inflow or outflow, it goes both ways, just so you know, that could change the market cap 100x or 500x in the short term, right? Even Bitcoin at 2.5 trillion market cap experiences some type of market cap multiplier. It's not in the hundreds, but they do experience it. So right now for the XRP ledger, what we just saw, I plugged in all of this data. I plugged in Chad's information here. And so it talks about the inflows that we saw, total major inflows in 4 hours. Here were the inflows, about 41.13 million, and it moved the market cap $30 billion in this period. And so you look at the math, you take all of this together on this move up. So this is what we talk about when we're talking about spot ETFs. Now, the spot ETFs are going to require new XRP being bought off the open market and used to fund those ETFs, right? You need the actual physical asset to back up those ETFs because they're going to say, oh, one of these shares is equals to 5 XRP or 10 XRP, whatever they decide to do. This is why the spot market is so important. And that's why we saw a huge boom in price when we saw the spot Bitcoin ETFs, and then Ethereum took a little bit of time, but you are starting to see some massive inflows. So expect a massive wave. If we get a fresh set of inflows, expect a massive price rise. Now, I did see this and I found it interesting. There are people believe that Ripple could still make a play for Circle. So I'm going to play the clip and I'm going to give you some factual information that I was able to find.
Solely reliant on just the profit of issuing a private stablecoin. So there is a dynamic here in play on the long ball end of this that could really serve Ripple coming back to buy Circle someday, even post IPO, I believe.
All right. Well, Rupert, why don't you jump in on that? Because this is stablecoin wars heat up. And I think they are wars right now because everybody's jockeying for position. What is your opinion on how this might play out?
I think the Ripple IPO makes sense from a lot of different angles. You know, Brad mentions all the different kind of revenue streams that Ripple have. Stablecoins is obviously a large one and they're very well positioned to do well in that sector. It makes sense. We've seen all the hype around Circle's IPO. Ripple's IPO, just for that one aspect of their business, makes a hell of a lot of sense. I think a really interesting thing, we're seeing the rise of sort of altcoin treasury companies. For example, with BMNR, we've obviously got a number of others out there. This is going to more widely affect the altcoin sector. For example, we already see a number of companies actually looking to add XRP to their balance sheet. I think if you look at all the different avenues that Ripple as a company has, one is to essentially be the ultimate XRP strategy company and benefit from any price appreciation that we see from XRP as an asset. Certainly if we start to see that real world implementation as a sort of global bridge currency. So I think in regards to the IPO, you're looking at an absolute Goliath of a company, given everything that they are undertaking. And we've just covered kind of two aspects. There are many more. You know, Brad rightfully mentions all the different sort of revenue streams that they have. The stablecoin wars is well and truly underway. Every single country is going to have to adopt this technology in the same way that they did the internet. Otherwise, they're going to essentially dissolve into irrelevancy. And as far as the leader of the free world, the United States, Ripple is their kind of number one boy, in my opinion.
Okay, so just some little context here. We're going to talk about the Circle thing after we talk about what he just said here. If you listen to what Brad Garlinghouse says about an IPO, they don't need to IPO. It's not something that they're actively thinking about. Of course, there is a plan to do that down the line. But Brad Garlinghouse has said the reason companies IPO is because they need to raise money. That is what Gemini just did, right? They needed money, so they're IPOing to raise that money. Ripple has a war chest of $100 and something billion with the XRP, and as well as everything else that they hold, right? Hidden Road, their stablecoin, everything else that they're doing. So Ripple is not in a rush to IPO. They want to do it in the right moment at the right time. And so some of what he says, I think he should have added some additional context of what Brad and the team have actually said about this, which he kind of didn't do. Now, talking about Circle, I wanted to look at this because people are still talking about Ripple possibly buying Circle. So I was like, how much, would Circle be, how much could Ripple buy Circle with? I don't know if this information is quite accurate because it's saying $7.2 billion as of August 2025. It says to acquire Circle today, Ripple would need to pay the amount close to Circle's current market valuation. Let's find out what is Circle's current market Evaluation. Is it 7.2 billion? Oh, I thought it would be worth more than that at this point. But yeah, see, like it's approximately $33 billion USD. I don't know, maybe someone that knows about how to acquire companies and like that, you can let me know, because there seems to be a big difference on like what Perplexity is thinking that this is and the current evaluation of the company. I don't really know how this works. I do apologize. This is not my ballywick. This is not my cup of tea, but I just thought this was interesting, and I will do some more research to better understand this myself, but I wanted to point this out and bring this up to you to see if you got any value. But there are many posts about Ripple possibly still considering buying Circle. We'll have to see, man. Listen, if Ripple did buy Circle or somehow found a way to do that, they would be the monopoly in America or globally for the stablecoin market, right? Because Tether really Tether sucks up to all the kind of shady exchanges manipulating all of these values, right? To look like they have a bunch of trading volumes and things like that, right? Tether and a lot of exchanges have gotten into trouble in the past. This is why Tether set up offshore. Now they're trying to be like, hey, America, we're still good, right? You know, we have a bunch of your treasuries. We want to come back in and we want to be relevant. But banks and institutions already know to stay far away from Tether. And I think that's what's going to play out here over the next few months. All right, guys, thank you very much. Have a great weekend. Pleasure to spend this time with you. Sorry, I'm kind of like wacky this morning, but who I am. Bye. Nothing in this video should be taken as financial advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. I am not a financial advisor. Please seek financial advice if you need it. Let's get back to the video.